Hi everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard, and today I want to talk about, first of all, I want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes. I turned 65 last week, and I have to say it's sort of weird. I'm now officially a senior. I have applied for Medicare and all these kind of crazy things. I hate applying for those things because I never used them. I never really go see the doctor and all this health insurance. I just feel like I'm just giving my money away. Point of this conversation, though, is to talk about longevity. And I wrote an article last week for my birthday about kind of people ask me, what do I do? What do I do? How do I stay so healthy? And I really do practice what I preach. I hope you guys probably know that. And I do a lot of things. I really try to make seasonal adjustments. I really try to stay in sync with the circadian rhythms. I've cut down my travel over the last years to be more in circadian rhythm. So I really love what I do. I practice what I preach, write a lot of articles about it. And I feel like it's paying dividends. You know, I read a lot of articles about how this human body of ours is hardwired as we age to be more perceptive to subtle energy, to really become more spiritual, to access what Ayurveda calls the truth of you. Ayurveda, Ayur means life, Veda means truth. Ayurveda means the truth of your life. So the whole point of this whole journey from the Ayurvedic perspective is to let something more real out. And in your first part of your life, you're growing up, and then you're raising your family and making a living. And then the last part of your life, we call the Vata time of your life, is the time where you really have the wisdom. And there's a layer, a sheath in the body called the wisdom sheath, which happens to be between your mind and your spiritual life. And what I would say, you get the choice to be wise or dumb. That's why they call it wisdom. And if you're wise, you would choose to start to learn from everything you've experienced in your life and then make better choices and hopefully pay it forward to your children and grandchildren and things like that, which I think is a really beautiful concept. So as we get older, if we keep our body in balance throughout our life, and even you got to know that the body is incredibly capable of doing repair. So even if you should sort of kind of partied a little more than you ever liked when you were younger, you still have the ability to move into the Vata time of your life as you're older and really carry that wisdom and really begin to refine your subtle perception, to refine this instrument, which is what the human body is really about. There is no technology that can measure subtle energy, feel subtle energy like the human body, but we have to refine it, and that's what Ayurveda is really all about. Part of those refinements, and I wrote an article about, people ask me what I do, right? So I'm going to share a few things that I do, and then, but a big part of what I do is staying, in sync with the natural cycles. When I first started writing, I first wrote a book back in 2000 about eating at the seasons called 3-Season Diet. We now publish a recipe and a grocery list and a superfood list for every month of the year for free. You just get it online at lifespa.com, and you get that information every month for free to get us connected, right? Because the bugs in the soil change from season to season, and this is where the research is going. Ayurveda talked about this thousands of years ago, but now the research is really coming, and I write about it all the time. All this new research keeps coming in and saying, yeah, you guys, we should really eat with the seasons because the bugs in the soil change dramatically from one season to the next to help you and when you eat those foods, the bugs in your gut change dramatically from one season to the next. So we are circadian beings, and we need to act like them. And how do you act like them is connect to the foods. Of course, if you spray the food, the bugs are dead, and they're the transmitters of the circadian rhythms from the soil to our gut bugs to our genetic code to keep us in circadian rhythm and living a healthy life longer. And that's the beauty of Ayurveda. There's a whole branch of Ayurveda called Rasayana, which is the study of longevity. So they're really into this whole idea of staying healthy longer. And of course, we're going to age. I'm 65, right? I definitely feel different than I did when I was 25 in terms of my muscular strength and physical performance and all that. But I feel great in my body, and I exercise, work out every day. But I just don't have the strength that I once did. but I'm smarter. I've learned so much more, and I feel like there's so much more to learn, and that's the difference, right? You trade in a little bit of like, I can run faster, like, okay, that's nice, but now I want to live longer, healthier, and I want to refine my subtle perception. I want to understand more about this human body and how to help us all live longer in a really healthy way. So a big part of that is the seasons, and one of the fascinating stories was a story. It was an art study that was done with deer, and they were measured in terms of what they ate. And they eat leaves in the summer, and they have different bugs in their gut to help them digest leaves in the summer. But in the winter, they eat bark off the trees, and they have different bugs to help them digest the bark. And the study showed that when they actually gave the deer the bark in the summer, it didn't have the right bugs, it caused such a level of indigestion, the deer almost died. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So deer almost die when they eat out of season. What about us? We have processed, preserved foods that are from who knows what season, from who knows what country. It doesn't make any sense. So I started digging into the research of the soil and the foods and the bugs, and all this research started coming out. So I highly recommend that you get our free eating guide seasonally, so you start eating with the seasons. And you don't have to eat only with the seasons, but get medicinal dosage of what nature is providing for you in that season. Pull it out of the ground in your own garden and eat it, because those bugs are inoculating you so you can have boosted immunity in the winter, decongest you from allergies in the spring, and help you get rid of heat in the summer. This is the research. Studies even show now that the bugs on the herbs, on the plants, have a synergistic effect on, this is sort of logical, right? But now we have science to back it up, that the bugs in the soil attach to those roots of those plants, and they synergistically help each other. The roots help the bug, and the bug helps the plant. So when you eat that plant with the bugs on it, the studies show that those bugs are supporting the same medicinal properties of that herb, which is why at LifeSpa we use mostly whole organic herbs, because all the bugs are on them. Some of them, we test the bugs before and after we make a product every time. It's an FDA requirement, so we always do that. We know exactly how many bugs are in there. We know that when you take an extract, they're sterile, and when you take our herbs, they're loaded with good probiotic bugs. So when you take the herbs, for yourself, you're inoculating yourself with those bugs. Now, if you start understanding the idea of eating the herbs in season, that's a really cool idea. So thinking about, like at summertime, herbs like neem and brahmi and amalaki and shatavari, all those herbs really cooling, and they will inoculate your gut with the right bugs for that right season. Now we're transitioning into winter, and the herbs will change. I will shift the herbs that I take to be more ashwagandha and bacopa and tulsi and shilajit, all of these warming and heating herbs. And if I want to fire up my digestion, I would take an herb, something like Gentle Digest, which is ginger and cumin and coriander and fennel and cardamom, all these herbs to help strengthen the digestive system, which works really, really well. And in the springtime, you want to think about detoxifying. It's the liver detox time. So herbs like liver repair and turmeric and mangista for your lymphatic system and kukki for your liver, and also an herb called Warm Digest, really important. It's just black pepper, long pepper, and ginger, really spicy to help kind of break up some of the mucus to help fire up your digestion. So starting to even think about that idea that you're eating the herbs with the right bugs for the right season is a game changer. No one thinks about that. We just think of, give me the most potent herb you can, extract it, sterilize it, make it an extract, and give me this kind of pharmaceutical grade thing that does the job for you. But in Ayurveda, the idea was to take the whole herb, including the microbes, and actually take those herbs in a seasonal way whenever you can, and as a preventative sense, and then take the other herbs you need to fix your imbalances for sure. Whenever, it doesn't matter what season you want to get better, but then you use this as your preventative means and your preventative baseline, if that makes sense, right? So that's what I love to do. I love to keep thinking of new ways to kind of connect my body with the circadian rhythms and the circadian cycles, and I just think it's a fascinating thing. Now, I did write an article about everything I do, my daily routine, and I start out, and I'll give you a quick little rundown in the article. I have a step-by-step kind of plan you can go through. It's right at my website at lifespa.com if you want to know what I do. But I really do think it pays dividends. I feel so blessed that I'm healthy, and it isn't like I have like perfect stock and perfect genes. You got to know that. People say, "Oh, John, you're just healthy and you've always been healthy." It isn't really true. I've had battles with high blood pressure. I've had battles with high blood sugar. I have had, issues with my prostate. I've had, low back issues. I have neck issues. I mean, I'm just like the rest of you guys. I have, issues, but I've been able to nip them in the bud earlier on so they don't become a problem. I don't need medication. I don't need any of those things, but I'm able to kind of support them and keep myself healthy that way. So I want you to know it's not like I'm just, super genetically encoded. I wish I was, but I'm not. So anyway, I start my day with the sun. I always try to get up with the sun. It's getting a little easier now. The sun is rising much later than it did in the early part of the summer. So I love that. But I always try to do something in the morning with a meditation with the sun salutation in front of the sun. I'm actually doing research for a documentary on Agnihotra, which is a fire ceremony, which you do a sunrise and a sunset. And I think it's kind of really a fascinating thing. And because, if we would just get up with the sun and go go to bed shortly after the sunrise, so many things would get better. Our rhythms would be in sync. But there's also this amazing science about Agnihotra. I wrote an article about it. And what happens when you stare at a flame or look at the sunrise or the sunset, something chemically happens to our body that resets the circadian clock. Not going to go into that here. Type in Agnihotra and you can read the science behind that. It's quite phenomenal on my website at lifespa.com. But meditation, sun salutation is really important. I like to start the day doing that. Then I want to do some yoga. But before I do that, I do some workout. Some days I'll go for a run. My favorite thing to do is I have this kind of ski trainer, so kind of called a Concept 2, and you pull these little pulleys and you can pull them this way and all these different ways. You can do lunges. And I have this little routine that I go through, and I spend about 20 minutes on that. I love it. It's easy. It's fun. It's different movements. It's not just pumping iron, and it just keeps my body in shape and really flexible and gets all those little movements that you don't always get when you're just pumping iron or doing the same routine. It's really dynamic. I love it. So I do that. And then after I do that, I do a series of yoga postures, which I love because I'm not generally really super flexible. So that really, getting my body warmed up with some cardio with the ski trainer and then the yoga really helps me. And then I have this Viper vibrating roller. I did a video on that thing. I love that thing, and I'll vibrate, and that sort of creates this kind of increased microcirculation through my body, and I'll do like a visceral massage on my belly, I'll do my back. And this is all depending on how much time I have. Some days it gets crunched down and some days I have more time to do it. A lot of days I have to be see patients at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I do try to kind of get it all done in the morning. But then I always find time to do some breathing practice. Even if it's just 5 minutes of breathing, I always do the Proteloma, which is the strengthening of your diaphragm breathing practice that I wrote about and done videos on. You really need to understand that we sit too much, and we sit around. I'm sitting now talking to you. I sit in the car driving home. I sit, eating my meals. I sit doing consultations. My rib cage is jamming into my diaphragm, pushing my diaphragm into a downward position, pre-contracting it. So then I want my diaphragm to contract and inflate my balloon, my rib cage, and open it up. But as I sit around all day long, the rib cage is pushing my diaphragm to pre-contract, so it can't fully inflate my rib cage. And your rib cage is like a big balloon, right? It always wants to exhale, so it's always squeezing the air out. And the only way it opens up is when your diaphragm contracts to open it up. But if your diaphragm over time starts to not contract the way it once did when you were younger, then the rib cage becomes cage-like. Your rib cage and your diaphragm act as your major lymphatic pump, which is the key in Ayurveda to longevity. It's called rasa. The study of longevity is rasayana. So if your lymph is not being pumped by your diaphragm and your rib cage has become a cage, you're going to age rapidly. And there's a host of things that happen. Read my articles on over-breathing and breath retention and intermittent hypoxia and Proteloma, and understand breathing. It's critical, right? We stop doing it, we don't do very well, right? So that's really important. So I'll do some Proteloma, and then I'll usually do a really slow alternate nostril breathing with a breath hold on the top and the bottom, and then a really slow, sometimes if I have time, I'll do the Brahmari, which is the humming breath, which I really, really love. And that increases your nitric oxide, just humming, by 15 times, which is the Nobel Prize winning molecule, panacea molecule that they discovered in 1998, that won the Nobel Prize. And you make it when you breathe through your nose. And when you hum, you make 15 times more, right? So it's crazy. So that breathing technique is called Brahmari, and I've written all about that too. You can go into the details. And then I do a really slow Ujjayi breath with breath holds top and bottom, and then slip into a meditation. And again, it's all adjusted based on how much time I have. Then I have breakfast. Now, breakfast is sort of weird. According to the circadian rhythms, medicine, science, breakfast is really the first thing we should do because that sets the metabolism for the day. A lot of people just skip it. It's really a bad idea. And I know in the intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, calorie restriction world, people just skip breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. It's a lot easier to skip breakfast and just kind of fast till noon and then eat and have your time-restricted eating. And there's benefits to that. But there's also the circadian biological clocks that really require us to have a breakfast and a lunch and then no supper. If you want to skip a meal, skip supper. A little bit more inconvenient with family, and it's hard, so I don't always get it in. But that's the routine to do, is breakfast and lunch with a smaller supper. So it doesn't always work, but here's what I do. If I don't have to go to work that day, I wake up and have breakfast and do my workout and my routine, everything after that. Because I want to start the day, start kicking my metabolism as quick as I can. Works great for my blood sugar, and I always keep an eye on my blood sugar. I take my blood sugar every morning, make sure that I'm keeping that in balance. Like I said, I had issues with blood sugar in the past, right? So I always keep an eye on that. And it's fine now. So it's really important to keep an eye on that, though, because that's the smoking gun as you get older for degeneration. But if I have to go to work and whatever, I'll wake up early, do my breathing meditation, then I'll have a little breakfast before I go to work and do it that way. So, you do the best you can with sort of what you have. For breakfast, oh gosh, I love oatmeal. My favorite thing is the Scandinavian fiber crisps, which are just basically fiber, and I'll put some almond butter on it with some berries and stick the berries in the almond butter. I have that with a cup of herbal tea, decaf black tea, or decaf coffee. I do Swiss water processed decaf coffee. I don't do any caffeine. I find that plenty of research on why not to do caffeine. And I did coffee for a while, and I found that I felt energized and really clear and all these benefits. And because you get hooked on the whole idea that coffee is this new health food. And I think the benefits of coffee are there, but without the caffeine. All the studies show the benefits are there with or without the caffeine. But the caffeine has issues, plenty of them, but they don't talk a lot about that. And in Ayurveda, we don't want to stimulate the body to make energy you don't have. Then you wake up thinking about it. That's just nuts, right? You're waking up thinking about something to get you energy. And I feel like I have more mental clarity and energy without caffeine than with, for sure. So I'm not a big fan of that, but I understand a little bit here and there is fine, no big deal for me. I just choose not to do it because I have a brain that once I get a taste of that stimulant, my brain wants it again, and so I just don't go there. So anyway, that's that, sharing all my secrets here with you guys. The herbs that I take, I mentioned already. I love taking a digestive aid as well, like Warm Digest, because studies show that you take a little bit of spicy food, it increases your longevity by 14%. Now, I hate spicy food. I don't understand why people would ever put anything in their mouth that would burn their mouth. I could never understand that. If you give me chocolate, I understand that, but I don't understand spicy food. Then I read these articles about how people who eat spicy food live 14% longer. I was like, oh my God. So I take this herb called Warm Digest, which is a bit spicy, to kind of fire up my digestion. And as a pitta, I always thought that would be bad for me, too hot, too spicy for me. And I actually feel like it actually cools my pitta, because the more acid you make in your stomach, the more it's going to trigger more buffers for that acid. So your bile, your pancreatic enzymes kick in. So it turns on the whole digestive system. So that was a kind of really cool recent discovery for me. So I just thought Pitta, maybe not warm digest, I would do the gentle digest, which is just the spices, and that worked great for me, and I love that. But now, you live and learn, right? That's what this is all about, is learning how the details, where I guess that's where the devil is, right? You find the details. Lunch, I always have made lunch the biggest meal of the day, and supper is a supplemental smaller meal. As I'm getting older, I find my metabolism is slowing down some, so I don't need as much food. I just definitely don't need as much food, and that's been proven, well studied. So I'll have lunch somewhere between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, and that's generally the last meal of the day. Now, if I have a lunch at 2, I might have a little something really small for supper in the evening. But, if you're gaining weight, then you would just kind of take the supper away or make the supper lighter, and that can help modulate your weight as you go along and go from there. I do eat about 10% of my diet is animal protein. I've done the research on that, and of all the vegetarian types that are out there, including the fish eaters and the pescatarians and the chicken eaters and the no red meat eaters and all that, the ones who live the longest are the pescatarians, the vegetarians who eat just a little bit of fish or animal protein. So that's the main source. I usually try to get salmon 2 or 3 times a week. I will have a little bit of cheese once a week, once every 2 weeks. As you get older, I find that I don't do a lot of dairy, not because I feel different when I digest it, but the research on the prostate is a little bit of an issue, and that's one of my genetic weak links, so I always have to keep an eye on that too. So I really do very little dairy, but I will have some raw cheese once in a while, and I will have that with a glass of wine, absolutely, but on occasion, once every week or once every 2 weeks or something like that. It's not something that I feel I have to do. I don't like it when you find you needing something. You need that glass of wine, or you need that drink, or you need that cup of coffee, or you need that chocolate, or you need something to get through the day. That's a red flag in my world, and also in the Ayurvedic world, because all of a sudden now you're needing something to get you, through the day. And then, like I said, the evening, absolutely, my favorite thing to do is get to bed early and meditate before I go to bed. I find that, and studies show that when you meditate before you go to bed, if you go to bed and you have the whole day, the studies show that you're going to review your whole day when you go to sleep in the first couple hours of your sleep, which is fine, but all that is just de-stressing through the day. And if you meditate before you go to bed, you de-stress in a more efficient, faster, more comprehensive manner than you would if you have to go to sleep and sleep it off. You know what I mean? So by meditating, you kind of shovel out all that daily stress. So when you finally go to sleep, you end up in a state where you have much, much deeper sleep. And I wear an Oura ring at night when I sleep, and I measure that. So I know it works better. I get much deeper, much longer, and more time spent in my deep sleep and my REM sleep, but I always shoot for at least 2 hours of each of those. And the meditation makes a world of difference. It also gives me better blood sugars in the morning. So it's all good to help get the stress out. I usually like to do some slow breathing before I do the meditation, some really slow ujjayi or slow alternate nostril breathing with breath holds on the top and bottom of each of those breaths, but comfortable, no straining, just kind of taking my nervous system down a notch and then go from there. Oh yeah, I also do take melatonin before I go to bed because I'm old, and that hacks the aging process. I take something called low-dose melatonin, which is like 1 drop of ours is 0.1 milligram. You can't even buy that in the store, and the research is overwhelming for longevity. And it's not for longevity, but it actually helps you with your microbiome. It helps you with your glutathione and your liver detoxification. It helps you with your joint health, your mental clarity, your focus, your circadian rhythm. I use it as more than anything else, a circadian medicine reset. And as we get older, we produce less melatonin. And so one way to hack the aging process, nature's way of getting rid of us, is to sort of stop giving us that circadian medicine reset, circadian rhythm reset agent, so we have less of it, so we start to age more rapidly. So and the research shows that just a very little bit of melatonin, 1 to 2 or 3 drops is what I take before I go to bed, 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams, and it helps to reset the circadian rhythms and the circadian clock. Also, and I was never a fan of melatonin until I found, and I did a podcast with a melatonin researcher from Duquesne University. Her name was Paula Witt, and she told me that melatonin doesn't suppress your own production. It's not a hormone, as everyone thinks. It's a molecule, a 3 billion-year-old molecule that connects your biological clocks in every cell of your body with with nature's circadian rhythms. So it doesn't suppress your own production, it encourages your natural production. That's what happens. So I feel very safe telling my patients, if you're a little on the older side, to use a low dose to just hack the aging process. Higher doses to reset the clock for a shorter period of time when you're younger, or for medicinal purposes. Science is all over that. But for me, I just take a little bit for resetting and maintaining a healthy circadian rhythm. And that's it. Then I go to bed earlier in the winter for sure, and later in the summer. I try to go to bed by 10 or 10:30 in the summer, but in the winter I'm oftentimes in bed by 8 or 8:30. And that wasn't how it always was. I was always a kind of firm night person, and I would stay up very late and write books and put the kids to bed at 8 o'clock and then work till 1 or 2, and I've learned my lessons, and I don't do that anymore. So I really respect those clocks. I wish I knew those things way back when, 20, 30 years ago, but luckily I think never too late to figure it out and make it better. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. There's an article about all this stuff, about what I do, and I hope that helps you. Thanks so much for all the birthday wishes. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all next week.